Welcome to Join the Raid. Tonight we have a lovely topic of the pros and cons of technology. Today we have the co-host of the with the most, Savage himself,
Hello.
and of course myself, Raider or Terry, whichever one you want to go by. If you decipher that little project I did with the titles, but we're going to talk about technology. Let's go back to the '80s when we talk
The
about
80s.
technology.
Mm,
Yeah, computers
great.
still weren't in every single home. People did everything the old-fashioned way. People were more dependable as well when it came to
Definitely.
that. And go from there to today, where you can see a little kid, I mean, like 10 or younger sometimes, have their own iPhone and they're just glued to it.
Yeah, it's different
Like,
now. You see that through the 80s. It changed in the last 20 years really quick. In 30 years, you can see it changed. It's gone from, like you said, when I was growing up, I was born 93. And so throughout the 90s, you still hanged out outside, rode your bicycle, scooter, whatever you had, played sports outside. But as you get closer to the 2000s, technology became more involved and active outside. You see that a lot today, especially.
oh yeah, I remember I was born in '90, so about the same time frame, but I lived in a small town area, and people that had internet, they had money. They had to have money to have internet where I lived. And it was one of those things that we didn't really need it at the time. We went to school, and that's when we had internet, and so we used that for everything. And it never, it never once was one of those things I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to have this with me all the time. And today alone, if it wasn't for my phone and internet, I wouldn't have been able to keep track of everything else going on.
Yeah, everything's so intertwined with technology today. Completely different from the 80s. Technology was there, but it wasn't the main factor into everyday life. Whereas technology today factored in everyday life. Like example, DoorDash. Like I told you earlier, I just started that up,
Yeah,
tried it out, so make some extra cash on the side. Without it, I probably wouldn't be able to do DoorDash at all because with the phone you do DoorDash, you accept that order. And then once you accept that order, a GPS coordinates. Go to Taco Bell. Here's the GPS, the address. Then you go to the address. You find the house. It tells you everything. Without that, I wouldn't be able to do any of it. I'd be like, where am I going? What is this street? What house is? With the GPS, it gives a lot of opportunity, and it can help you, but it could also hinder you in so many different ways.
yeah, that's true. Looking at it from the other standpoint of it, of just GPS by itself, how it's just evolved and integrated through every single aspect of everything. Used to be you use a map to find out where you're going. Nowadays, most people can't even read a map.
No,
Um, then you go from what we had the GPS. What was that brand? Everybody had it when they were going across country or something like that. It's one of the GPS models. They
yeah,
had like Magellan. They had so many other different ones, and when you saw that, you're like, oh, they travel a lot. You instantly knew it. It was how you could just differentiate people.
yeah, yeah,
Nah, you're good, man. Go for it.
yeah. Like you said, it's crazy. Like you see the process go through over time. Eight most likely still using the maps unless you're really rich and you got like the beta versions of what we have today was might been out back then, but you had to be super exclusive and rich to get. Most people use the map. You'd be driving and you have the map open. Someone in the passenger seat is telling you which direction to go, and you're like, "Oh, Route 409, exit 30," and then you're winging it basically the whole time. And it's crazy when I think about it. I'd be frantic. Where am I going? I'm lost down below. But yes, most cases you're collected, you're calm. You see what street you're on, you see the highway you're on. The GPS talks to you. Exit 3 coming up in half a mile. It's like, okay, cool. You can't really mess it up at that point unless you use Signal, but most cases you. So it's crazy to see how that's changed over time. As cool as that technology is, it kind of makes us dumber at the same time because we become so
Oh yeah.
reliant on the technology. You stop thinking for yourself and you're just like, I don't have to really try. I just type in the coordinates and it helps in certain aspects. But if you do that day in, day out, you're kind of like a mindless drone or a zombie at that.
Well, that's kind of where it all keeps going, no matter what. Like you said, um, it went from you had to know where you were going, whose house you were going to, and you had your way of going there, and everybody else had their own way of going there. And it was good times back then because either you walked there or you took a ride and you paid attention. Usually when you were actually riding in a car. And nowadays, anybody actually pays attention to like actually the drive now. If they're not the one driving, then it's kind of a miracle.
Def. Yeah, I noticed that a lot,
So
especially if you're like if you're when I'm driving, I'm focused on the road in front of me, and in every 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, I look for a quick glance at the GPS and then back straight to the road. And when I have someone next to me in the passengers shotgunning or whatever, they'll look over and be like, "Oh, look at that! Oh, look at that! Did you see that?" I'm like, "No, I don't see that because I'm driving, looking forward, so I don't smash into another vehicle."
I'm trying to keep you safe right now. Just take a picture of it for me.
Yeah, it's either they're looking everywhere and seeing everything, or they themselves are just lost in their phone as well. So you're just focused on the road in front of you and the cars around and the GPS, and then the people in the car, whether it be your wife or kids, are looking out the window, looking at the cool things, or they're just so lost in their own phone and technology. It's
And that itself was one of those things that when I think about it, I would love to go back in time just to get back to just enjoying. Because even nowadays, a conversation with somebody, you can't even go talk to somebody without them one glancing at their phone to see something came through or their smartwatches. I mean, I have one too, but I barely ever use it because I keep everything to my phone. Just try to minimize it as much as possible because I know me, I'll forget something, and I just see people they're always on their phone. And somebody's actually trying to tell them something important on top of that, and then they still do it. And I'm like, well, do I need to schedule a meeting or do I need to like? Do you have an
there's
assistant?
some health issues. And I
But
noticed that too with this podcast in general. I did that at the first 3 episodes or first 2 episodes. I'd still be engaged in the conversation, but I'd be like this. I get a Snapchat from my girlfriend. That that's a reflex. I'm a person that once I get a text, a call, or a snap, I gotta reply instantly. I have to because I don't want them to think that I'm missing. I'm ignoring them. It's in the back of my head. I'm thinking now. I'm thinking about myself. I'm like, I'm doing stuff like this. I'm having a conversation with someone. Put the phone to the side. They'll be fine. Just focus on the podcast. Focus on the call. Whatever I'm at. You're talking to someone. Don't be rude to that person because now you're neglecting the person you're actually talking. Either it's face to face, like right now with the podcast, or in person.
yeah, I get that, and I am guilty of that myself. You see me do it. I get a message, and it actually is an important message, and I'm like, I'll reply while they're talking real quick because it's actually important. But then other times I just glance over as like that can wait until we're actually done because
And
most things just take time, and I always forget that myself. That if I just take the time and just be like, okay, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna finish what I'm doing, I'm gonna get all this stuff done, then I'm gonna handle it. Because if something's wrong, they're gonna call you. Like that's what my all opinion. Like they'll actually call.
definitely, yeah. Again, going back to that point where technology changed over time, no one really saw this coming to where we are now that we'd be glued to our phones. Because before you get the cell phone, it was a flip phone or a sliding phone or a razor, which is also a flip phone.
Or the
And those,
bricks, the Nokia
yeah, the
bricks.
bricks, yeah, they didn't have what we have today in technology. Now I can really advanced games, watch whole movies while I'm at work, listen to crazy music, TV, whatever on my phone. You can do everything on your phone now. You can take an amazing picture. And no one saw this coming early 2000s. They're like, "Oh, the flip phone, that's so advanced, that's so cool. You can call someone, you can text someone with the button." And then they changed it to texting where it actually has individual letters on the screen. And you're like, that's so cool. But then they added internet, and they're like, internet on the phone? Because back then, internet
Oh
was
yeah,
exclusive just to your people.
yeah,
So
I
you have
remember
this big brick of the
that.
huge tube TV monitor and everything, and you're just looking at it, you're like, oh, I can go on the internet, I can do these crazy things, emails. Over time, the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, it's changed so dramatically and so fast. No one saw this coming, and no one thought of the repercussions of it, because with all this crazy technology, they never. At first, there was no laws against texting and driving. There was no laws against going on the internet and driving. They were assuming people would be smart about it. When you give people this ability to do things and grounds of rules of regulation to help them guide, then people tend to abuse it, and then ends up causing fatalities, such as like drinking and driving. People
Yeah,
drank and drive, and then once they started implementing, oh, you can't drink and drive, people got mad at it. They're like, how dare you take that away from us? You can't do that. Over time, people realize the repercussions of it, what could happen. It
yeah,
could be a big mistake where you take someone else's, or it could be a minor thing where you black out while driving and hit a telephone pole. You black out, you break the telephone pole. That costs you $10,000, $20,000 to fix all. So
yeah.
it's great.
It is going with that. It's looking at how computers advance because they used to take up a whole room for one computer. Um, and now everybody can have one in their house. Like we're on one right now, and doesn't take up, it doesn't even take up a quarter of your room. Didn't take up any space at all. And you just think about just how fast it advanced compared to everything else what we do with everything with advancing. Usually it takes 20, 30 years for everything to be fully advanced to where you don't think you can go any further. But now that we know now, it's every single year, every couple years, there's a new graphics card. Let's just look at that. Graphics cards,
Yeah,
GPUs used to be graphics card were individual things, and I would just buy a new graphics card. Maybe cost you $100 at the time, something like that. It wasn't a big deal. Nowadays, you're spending up to $600, $800, and
thousand
I'm looking
dollars,
at it.
2,000.
Yeah, thousand
It's
dollars
insane.
now because of the new ones, the 40 series.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think about it all the time. It's just like, man, if I would have known what I knew, if I knew now what I knew, and I could take it back in time, I would invest in it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And like, it's gonna fail. It's like, cool, I'll let it fail. It's gonna come back up. I'm gonna be set for the rest of my life. But again, can't go back in time and can't fix those little problems. But like even the power supplies on computers, they're so small now. Used to take up at least a good, I think, 40% of space inside the computer, just because they're inverters and you need the power. And everything was bigger and bulkier back then, so it made sense. And if you ever had your computer on for too long and you ever touched it, you felt how hot it actually got.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
So
it's crazy because like my PC, it's made for gaming and streaming at the same time. It's got it's 4 fans plus a wall cooling or H2O cooling system with through,
okay,
and so that's all insulated and it'll never leak out. It cools the computer down pretty easily, but also, like you said, the power supply is pretty small, but it's not that strongest either. If I need to get a new graphics card, I have to upgrade that as well. It's only a 650 watt,
Yeah,
so
but there's
that's decent. It does the
yeah, but for that, that's not bad. And then too, the most power supplies nowadays, you can go to Best Buy, you can go
get one for like
online
a
to
hundred.
go anywhere. Newegg is 150 bucks, 150 bucks max. You got a Gold Series power supply. And you like don't have to worry about upgrading.
Yeah, I looked at them just to see. I was like, oh, if I wanted to upgrade my graphics card again at some point, what would I need? Like you said, the gold series is gold plated because that's the best conductor,
Yeah,
and that'd be for like 1,000 watt gold plated power supply. It was like $180, so it wasn't bad. It was like, yeah, that's not bad.
it's not
Graphics card.
horrible at
That's
all.
different.
You'll get them pockets ready for that graphics card.
Yeah, exactly. Though I got lucky with mine. I found it was it Facebook like sales or whatever, and
Yeah,
the 3060 I got at the time was because it was on a high demand but low supply. It was worth $1,200, and I got it for 500 instead on Facebook Market. So at the time, it was worth it. I was like, all right, yeah, I can definitely use this. I bought it. Went to a police station, met the guy that traded.
see, you got a bargain. You see that right there. You can shop around for bargains for any kind of tech. You can shop around for bargains, but sometimes I tell people all the time it's better to go through more trusted sites and everything because they test them before they sell them again just to make
Mm-hmm.
sure they actually work. Because it could have been a dud and you'd have been out
Out
the
500.
money.
Yeah, yeah. The packaging itself was still in the original package. It wasn't opened or tampered with. It had still the same seal. I went through the whole process looking up information about it because the guy claimed about how he got it from the original packaging, never opened it. I was like, all right, what do I look for signs that it's like tampered with? The seal itself is a specific sticker that seals the top and bottom, and only this company has these specific seals. So if it's been tampered with or if it's changed, then you know that it's messed around. So I looked
Yeah.
for signs. I didn't see anything. The guy himself seemed kind of clueless on technology of PCs. Why? Because the card he had was really good. I guess he wanted a 38 because he wanted to play everything on 4K instead of 1440. But he wanted to play Call of Duty and high FPS. Is like even then you're not gonna get a high FPS. You're not gonna want to run Call of Duty on 4K. Whatever. It's a whole.
Yeah.
So the guy himself didn't know what he was talking about, but he the value of the item, and he knew that I was worth my money, and he was not gonna mess around. So I knew I could trust him. He can trust. We did business, and we moved.
Yeah. See that worked out for you. That's a good thing. Heard plenty of stories where it didn't work out when the 38 when the 38s actually were coming out at first. They were people scalping like no other
Oh,
and selling just the boxes, shipping out the boxes, something empty inside of it or something heavy inside of it, so people thought it was the same weight, and I get it to them, and that I laugh 'cause I was like, man, why didn't y'all just go to the manufacturer? It's expensive. So yes, it's expensive, but
exactly.
you go through well, Nvidia, big one now, but the other one, GT. Oh, I had it in my head too.
Nvidia GT or RT.
Yeah, it's RTX.
RTX
This
is the newer brand. That's the 3060s and above.
Yeah, the RTX when they actually agreed to contract out to have another company make them, they had a program that, hey, you bring us your old graphics card, we'll take that price off because they repair them and they resell them.
Uh,
And if you want to upgrade, they had an upgrade program for them too. That hey, the next card's coming out, they email you, do you want to upgrade yours to the new card? So instead of spending $1,200 off the back, you're trading in your graphics card and paying like I think 600, 700 bucks. So it was great. But unfortunately that company's no longer doing graphics cards anymore. Not with Nvidia anymore. Supposedly they're doing their own private graphics card, which I'm okay with because I'd invest in it. But
Yeah, definitely. It's something I looked into investing in on stuff like graphics cards, like anything electronic, really, especially the things that are becoming popular. Keep an eye on trends mostly, and you can see where stuff's leading, and that's where you like end up putting stocks into interest in.
DDR6, just remember DDR6 and know that DDR4 and DDR5 are going to become obsolete really soon, especially if you were talking about the graphics cards area.
Yeah,
But back on topic, let's look at simple things like a TV.
oh yes, definitely.
Like I have
TV.
I have a 65-inch smart TV, and it does everything. It has voice commands, everything like that. Things I never would have even guessed, even in my 20s, that would be even exist. Like to this advancement without having to spend like over 2 grand on it or so forth. And
Yeah, like you were saying, smart TVs like that and stuff like it's changed a lot over time. It really has.
I mean, look for the box TV where I grew up on the box TV, the tube, everything, and it was one of those things that you turned it on and you waited and it warmed up and then you're good to go. Then our family upgraded it and got newer style TV. It was a plasma screen.
The plasma screens, which is the original flat screens, basically.
Yeah. And then you look from plasma screens to how they started transitioning over to real flat screen, real thin. They started getting smaller. People started not trusting them because they were so small. And I laughed about it. I was like, well, if it works right and it's smaller, wouldn't that be better?
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, like the original smart TVs or original like flat screens we have compared to like the early 2000s when they came out, like they were considered at the time flat screen, but they still had like a box on the back, like it stuck out
Yeah.
in the back. It was just the frame was, but now technology has come to the point where everything is just flat and it can be just put right into the wall, mount. And for the most, yeah, you'll get some better quality out of certain brands, Samsung. And if you go to Best Buy, you can get ridiculous like TVs that are worth like $4,000. I don't know what those that make them so special. Because at the end of the day, the 4K TV I got was on sale for $300 at Walmart, and it's a
Yeah.
42 inch. So it's okay. It works fine. It's 4K. I see everything picture perfect.
Yeah, see that's what most people don't realize is the reason why they're so expensive is it's because the pixels and everything else, if you're big into like actual picture quality and every aspect of it, I mean every single aspect to feel like you're there kind of thing, to immerse you into that experience, that's what it's for. And it's basically it goes to that standpoint of like we talked about a couple episodes ago, people like that name brand and they don't give a shit about how much it costs and they're just trying to get that name. So it goes to that standpoint. Like my 6.5 inch is an LG and it's nice. I mean, I thought it was gonna be, I was like, well, there's gonna be shortcomings somewhere in it. No, audio's great, picks up everything, and I mean, I set my headset up when I'm playing Call of Duty to hear footsteps, and my TV picks it up without having to change any settings. It changes to game mode on its own whenever try to play a video game, and I don't have to do anything. I just turn all I gotta do is turn it on. And it does all the thinking and everything for me, so I don't have to change any setting. Um, then think about video games consoles nowadays. It went from Atari, which was the grandfather.
Yeah, yeah, ping pong. It's just two balls to Mario Kart or Mario. I can call Donkey Kong there.
Yeah,
Pac-Man arcade machines in the 80s and 90s. The PlayStation 1 that had like games that are like they're nostalgic now, Spiral the Dragon or some other crazy games you can think of, 007 from Nintendo 64. PS and Xbox came out the original. I don't know if they were the original, but they came out with pop. online play. That was like the first time online internet came around. Then PS3 came out. That's when it really kicked off, and then that became a thing. And then now everyone plays online. Everything is online. Even
Yeah.
if you play a single player game, you still have to sign online to do updates. Otherwise, you can't play the game. So it's crazy how it's changed. Not only how the game made, but also graphics wise and how accessibility through internet, all that. It's just changed over time. Where it was simple, you know, the graphics weren't there, but it was still fun to play. And then today, you look at a movie, and you're like, "This is a video game." VR coming out with more and more stuff every year. Where
Oh
is that
yeah.
going to lead to when VR goes to the point where you can't tell reality from video games? That's a scary thought.
That right there is going to be one of those things of it's going to cause a lot of issues, and there's going to be cause a lot of restrictions going to be put on that whenever it gets to that full realism.
Yeah, because they already have. I don't know if you ever saw Ready Player One.
Yeah.
It was a really good movie. I liked it. That body vest he had in the movie, it's not to a depth detail where it's the whole body and you can feel every crevice, but they do have like a bulletproof vest kind of, and
Oh, the
they have
gaming suit.
yeah the gaming suit. And it has like a
Yeah.
shock absorber, so when like a bullet hits you in game, it would hit that in the vest spot, and you would feel a vibration to give you that sensation you just got shot. So it's cool that technology is getting that depth, that detail, but it costs a fortune too. But it's also like you scary to the thought that someone might come up with some crazy game where it's like you die in the game, you die in real life or something.
Or somebody's going to have a heart attack because it's
Yeah,
just so realistic because your brain can't process it.
yeah, you
Because
fall into your death, you get scared, you think your head just got ripped off by a shark or something. You just say, wait a second, it's just a game.
yeah, it's one of those things that you always look at it and I look at it like because I want to try VR, but it's one of those things of it can wait. It
Yeah,
can wait. It can wait till that price point drops a little bit more for me.
I have a VR, I have Quest 2, and I played a few off of the PC. Quest itself doesn't it plays its own games and they're decent, but if you want to have an experience, any VR gamer should have is with Half-Life Alyx. That's the most
Okay.
realistic and beautiful game on in anything for VR right now. There's not a whole lot of selection that competes with, and that game is top of the line. So realistic. Look, you can take spray can, graffiti the wall, write with pencils on paper, or break glass and pick up the shards of glass, shake a vodka bottle with the liquid inside of it, and drink it and stuff like that. It's really cool and detailed.
Okay. See that right there is a little too. That's in depth, and that right there itself sounds intuitive. Sounds fun to try, but for me, I'm like I'm still gonna wait because I need to right now. Um, but going back to games, what was your very first system?
Very first system for me was PlayStation.
Okay, my first one was the Super Nintendo, the original Super Nintendo. So the bigger, longer cartridges,
Yeah,
and then I went NES. Sorry, not Super Nintendo, NES. Then I got Super Nintendo, and then I got a Sega Genesis,
I remember that.
because we started playing. That's when Mortal Kombat came out,
Mm,
and went from there. And my family, some of my family members had the Sega Dreamcast, which was decades in front of his time, but
yeah.
is one of those things. Then we got a PlayStation, and I started playing PlayStation. Uh, got a PlayStation 2. Then I got the original Xbox when it came out, and I started playing Halo, and that's when I fell in love with Xbox by itself because they said it would not be on PlayStation. And I was like, well, um, if it's not gonna be on PlayStation, I don't want another PlayStation. And PS2 is where it stopped.
Okay. Yeah, where some of like the best games came out from PlayStation 1 had Siphon Filter. I don't know if you ever played those games, but they were really good
Yeah,
back in the God of War. I think God of War 1 was on P
I
was it
think it was
on
on PlayStation 2.
Was it too? Okay, yeah. But that's where it really kicked off for me. I was like, wow, these graphics are insane. Now you look at it today and it's they're
What was I
cubes,
thinking when
basically.
I was that young?
But it's just back then you compare it to something from previous and you're like, wow, this is pretty crazy. And then as it got more advanced and detailed, yeah, you see difference. But yeah, PlayStation 1 was my first system. And I think my first game was Spiral the Dragon. And
Okay,
I remember that game so vividly. There were some other games I played that I remember. The nostalgia feels to those games are beyond comparison. But I think my first game I ever played was Zelda, though, on Nintendo 64. Or was it Dreamcast? No, it was Nintendo 64.
okay,
Yeah, Zelda Into the Wild. I think that's what it was. I'm trying to remember which one it was called. I know you had to use a bow and a bunch of stuff, but that was the first game I ever played. I went over to a friend's house. They had it. We're trying it. And I was like, "This is crazy!" And I got into that game and 007 GoldenEye. I think that was on Nintendo 64. Was it?
yeah,
I think
it
so.
was.
Yeah, yeah. So it was that.
Um, I mean, I remember on Nintendo 64, Pokemon Coliseum, like that game was again ahead of its time, and I haven't seen a game in that same mannerism. And I'm thinking to myself, like, they have a market right here. They could just do this, just do that, like yearly or every other year with that. Just update the Pokemon, and they would have it, and you have online play with it as well. You would have your other things, but then they released Pokemon Unite, and it's similar, but it's not
Not
the
the
same. Not the same at all. It doesn't help you like have that same feeling of, hey, I'm a Pokemon trainer. Pokemon, cool. In that game, you are the Pokemon. So it, I like it, but it's one of those things that I think that if they just redo Pokemon Coliseum and just update it,
that'd be.
it would. Like, what's the worst that can happen? The Pokemon
Who
sells
knows?
all the time.
Pokemon is very popular, especially like today, where it's like to this day they keep making new TV shows, new cards, new Pokemon. Ridiculous with the Pokemon itself, where there's like candles and trash bags, but whatever. It's so
Yeah.
popular that there's money to be made. So, who knows? Maybe in a year or two, maybe three, they'll update the game Coliseum because they can do it so many different ways. Nintendo Switch or PC, Steam, or Xbox or PlayStation. Because in the last few years, it's just all about remakes. They did a remake of Dead Space. That
Yeah.
that game's 20 years old now, or almost 20 years old. It's beautiful. They did really good with it. They did the updated graphics for Last of Us. This is like the second time they did like Last of Us remake or remaster or whatever. They're doing Prince of Persia. I don't know did you ever play those games? Prince of
Yeah,
Persia.
I played Prince of Persia.
I think within the next year they're going to do a remake of that. It's crazy. So who knows what's in store for Pokemon? If they have a head on their shoulders, which they'll see that there's revenue to be made there. Well,
Yeah, but again, they're making their money their way. They found a way to make constant income, no matter what. No matter what. And I
yeah,
mean, um, so they know better than us on what makes more money and how fast. So,
definitely.
so another game. What is it? I think it was. You said Prince of Persia. I remember that game, and that game was ahead of its time too.
Yeah, it
It
definitely
really
was.
was. Graphics wise, it was PlayStation back in the day, so everybody had the same graphic, but the mechanics of it were ahead of its time.
Yeah, definitely the cool vibe to the game. And you felt like alone because anything you ran into was just monsters. But also, if you got hurt or you're about to die, you can rewind time. The dagger of time, the sands of
Yeah,
time, and you had like three chances unless you filled it up after you used it once and kill an enemy and filled up more sand. It was a cool mechanic. It was
yeah,
definitely different and definitely ahead of its time.
yeah. For you, what is what's one aspect of technology right now that you think that if you had it back then, you'd be ahead of the game?
Be ahead of the game if I had it back then.
And then when I say back then, I mean it's time constant, so it's got to be in its time frame still,
Oh,
but
so like if
you
it was
had
brand.
access to it. Yeah, back
Okay.
then it was brand new. So
Oh, okay. If I was ahead of the game, that'd be crazy to think about. Honestly, I'd probably say something like, I'd probably go with DoorDash right now. If you were like one of the first people that learned about it, you'd be ahead of the market and you'd be able to pick and choose whatever you wanted to do at the time. And there'd be so much opportunities for you to kind of grow, take whatever jobs you want. Because if you're the first person there and no one else has heard of the place yet or the market, no one's taking up the job to be a DoorDash. You have all these people wanting food, so you get an order, and you're just like, well, if you want me to order or get it for you, you got to pay me the buck. So I
yeah,
guess that'd be, if I had to choose something right now, that would be.
so for me it would probably be for what I know now because I'm in cybersecurity. So I would probably take my knowledge in general and just go back in time and take that and just actually use it to benefit myself and put myself on a higher pedestal where I need to be.
Makes sense.
And because back then it wasn't certification based, it was you went to school for it or you already knew it and they tested you.
Oh,
And I would already be ahead of the game with it. I know things that they wouldn't know how to deal with in the first place, be first responder for threats, and to think about that money. I love me letter spam that went out in the early 2000s that because hackers were sending out emails to everybody and you click the link, they got all your banking information. Knowing how to beat that, that would have been like, and because it lasted for almost a year to 3 years of that happening, and it went everywhere. It
that's
wasn't
great.
just stuck to corporate; it was everywhere. Like just even regular people's email addresses, everything. And it was before the whole spam filter was actually doing its job.
All right. A question for you. Uh, we talked a lot about the pro on technology itself, how it's advanced. But what about the cons of it, really? We kind of briefly talked about it, like it makes us kind of dumber, kind of more reliant on technology. What would you, in more depth, what are the cons of it or examples of?
Oh, that's easy for me. It makes you it makes you less. I think it makes you less personable, and it makes you, like we said earlier, it makes you so reliant on it that you don't figure things out yourself anymore. So the knowledge aspect of living life and evolving itself is kind of at a standstill now. Because if you want knowledge nowadays, you have to either willingly actually go out there and go get it, or you have to do so much research on your own that you're going to be looked at as this person of why don't you just look it up on Google? Everybody says Google everything, and I tell them, Googling things is nice, but you know anybody can change anything on Google, right? It's just as bad as Wikipedia. The difference is there's just more steps. That's all it is.
I have a hilarious example of Wikipedia, but continue.
Besides that, probably be our honestly, it's just how generationally we as a people are kind of at a standstill when it comes to evolving in our mindsets intellectual because intellectuals nowadays can get shut down by a phone basically because people can look it
Hmm.
up in like 2 seconds. And these people actually took time out and went out and got a degree and worked for it and learned it instead of just looking it up really quick and being done. So that's my thing is I look at it all the time and everybody asks me and that's what I think about teachers. I go to teachers all the time with this because they're out educating, but these kids nowadays they just look up the answer now.
Yeah,
They don't have it where,
that doesn't.
oh well, we have library time this day or this week. I might be able to have time if there's a computer free to look up what I need to look up. Or I have to go grab a book from the library and go through those pages and read up and try to figure out which one's which.
Oh yeah, Like you said, we're so reliant on technology. It makes us just lazy because, like you said, I'm guilty of it too. Where it's, if I don't know the answer of it, I'll just look it up on Google or YouTube, and it can help in certain situations. It's definitely beneficial, but a lot of times it's just people don't want to learn for the simplest of things. When I look up something, it's something I haven't learned myself, and it's like an advanced thing I don't want to do without fucking it. So like if it's something PC related, I gotta change the hardware or graphics card or whatever, something more in depth and detail where it's like the computer coding or something, one little mistake could cause the whole thing to crash. So
Yeah,
obviously I'm gonna look it up to help myself. I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna read, something like that. Or again, this is like a pro the technology. It's when I said to myself, all right, we'll try out this door dashing thing. We'll do DoorDash for like 2 hours. The night before, I read up on it. I watched YouTube like videos on it, like the best ways to do it, like the pros and cons of it, and people gave their in-depth details of how to do it basically. So I'm not wasting my time, not valuable deliveries. They'd be like,
yeah,
watch out the mileage, how much you're getting, the base pay. You have to do math. You have to do mileage. You basically want to make $2 or more per mile, and if you're not making more than that, then it's not worth it. Say like you get a delivery for $8 and you're going 3 miles out of your, that's worth it because you're making more than two right there. Basically, you're making like
okay,
almost 250 something. Either way,
yeah,
so you have to do some math. You have to look into it. You have to plan your routes basically, and so like we're going back to like technology. Like you're talking, it's definitely a hindrance at some aspects, especially because by default humans want to be lazy, and when you give them that opportunity to be lazy, they'll take it every chance they, unless you're very
yeah,
strict on yourself about it. It's like if it's hardwired into you now to be not lazy, like you have to push yourself to call out day for work or take the easy route instead of going that little bit extra to get the better outcome. It's give and take, but technology definitely makes it easier for you to go that easier route, be lazier, to not work hard.
I agree with that. I agree with that a lot, and I see it all the time. And like you said, we're all guilty of it, especially nowadays. If you have a phone, you're guilty of it.
Exactly.
But besides, like there's always going to be pros when it comes to technology and their advancement. There's always going to be because if there wasn't, they wouldn't have been created in the first place.
Exactly.
The thing is, when they make these advancements, they didn't expect for everything else to come to a standstill as much as it did, especially when it comes to people being outside more, interacting with each other. They thought, hey, we're gonna give you another tool to make everything easier for you, and that way you don't have to worry about this one scenario anymore. But we have it where wow, we can do this, so why can't I do everything else?
It's a culmination of things too that combine into the technology advancement in car traveling, advancements in internet, social media. You get all these things combined, and it creates this monster, like you said, where you don't have to go outside to this. You can literally order food from the grocery store and have it delivered at your front steps. You don't have to go outside to just do that, or you don't have to go outside and play baseball. Go outside to go boxing because you can do VR and have the same effect for working out with the VR headset. I've seen people do a whole session of boxing VR and get the same benefits if they did it in real life because it actually still keeps you in that motion. So you're not going out and you're still getting exercise. What's the matter? What's the point? Well, you still need vitamin because you get this vitamin D from the sun. That's the best way to get it.
Yep.
People, like I said before, they say the easier route. I don't even go outside. Like COVID pandemic situation where
Okay.
everyone just stayed home to work. They suggested they didn't. I don't know if they knew or not. I'm not gonna say they did or not. Let's just they didn't know the outcome. They said everyone's just gonna work at home, and they think it's gonna work at home, be safe, it's gonna be. But then it caught on. Everyone's, I love this. I can stay home in my PJ
Yep. Yep.
and then stay at home and not have to leave and not to drive that hour drive to work. I'm staying home. I don't care. And now no one wants to do that anymore. They don't want to drive that hour, which is understandable because no one wants to because it's a pain in the ass. A lot of gas mileage, a lot of time waste. But at the same time, they don't give themselves enough time outside of the house. They just sit inside the house, work all, and a lot of people just stay there. They be vampires, if you want to go by that, and just hide from the sun basically, and they seclude themselves from society, which isn't good because in order for society to properly work, you need to have conversations with other people. That's today's generation of kids are having a hard time communicating with and making friends or communicating with their family, expressing themselves. They learn these things through interactions with other people, including teachers, kids, their parents, indoor, outdoor, but mostly it's from other kids or teachers in school, or if you're a person at work, you same. So
Yeah.
again, technology and other culmination of things combined.
And that is all valid because we're always nowadays, especially after COVID, it's kind of like everyone's stagnant. They're hoping, and then they're kind of hoping for that next one to happen again. Like that's going to make them where they can work from home and be secluded a little bit more. And when COVID released, like I was happy when COVID was over and they stopped putting all the restrictions on us because I'm that person that likes to get out of my house a lot. Or I used to be. So I was never home. And when I say never home, I mean I was home only to sleep. That was it. There was nothing else, just no other reason to be home. Um, then I got into this mindset of I need to slow down. I need to take care of some business and be responsible. And I started liking actually being home and having my isolation time to relax and keep myself together and not have to deal with other people. It's made me a better person from that standpoint because I used to have this problem of people not liking me a lot. And it just made me a little bit more tolerable of people because I kind of have that appreciation when I deal with them. It's like, oh, okay, this person's actually talking to me. Okay. But yeah, when it's forced upon, like COVID happened, and I didn't want anything to do with it. Not even a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got told all the times that just need to go back home. It's like I'm just driving around. I'm just driving around. I'm not getting out of my car. I'm not talking to nobody else. I'm just driving.
It was crazy back then. It was like the Wild West. Either people or law enforcement, government officials, whatever, would tell you one thing, act the other way, or they just try to enforce it on you to make you stay home, and that's not good for people to stay secluded that long. It creates a lot of issues, a lot of problems. It's good to get out every so often because when you stay home for so long, you'll get depression. It's a thing. It's a proven fact. Statistics are out there for that information. It was shown throughout COVID. A lot of things popped up that people didn't realize, and now they see. Because after a long time, it just builds, and you don't want to just sit around all day by yourself, even if it's with your kids and your wife you love. Even still, you need to get out and move. You need. Humans are not made to just be secluded all the time like that. It's in our DNA to not be secluded that.
That's true, and I I agree with that 100%. When it goes to our DNA, we were meant to always be moving. We are always meant to be either communicating in some shape or form, like actually personally, or doing everything 100% by with somebody else or by ourselves outside, one or the other. Where it goes to hunt, like where it began hunting, gathering food, gathering supplies, to nowadays it's you go to work, come home, or if you work from home, you just try to go outside. Like if I didn't have my dog, I don't know if I would go outside as much as I normally do. But he helps me get out of the house a lot, and it benefits me because it gets me outside. It's like cool on my break, every single break I'm outside, every single break, lunch break, anything like that, outside because he needs to go out, so we go out. So first thing in the morning, I go outside before I even start work, so I'm already outside. At night before I go to bed, I go outside, help him out, make sure he's good to go outside, go potty, whatever he needs to do, run around, run on some energy, and then he gets ready to come inside, come back inside. But it's just this is my way of doing it because I know he relies on me, and when I had kids to deal with, it was one of the things that I always did the same thing. Like we went outside, we went somewhere, went to the park, everything like that. It was always something to make it a little better to, and I always felt better afterwards because I was outside. Because sunlight, again, vitamin D, it actually makes you get in a better mood as well.
Yeah, vitamin D is a big factor, not only your physical health, but mental as well. It gives you energy, but also it heals the mind to the point where it doesn't cure depression, but it helps give a sense of happiness. Like I love going out during the sun. During the winter, I'm definitely inside all the time. I hate the colds. I hate the. I'm a warm-bodied person. I love the heat and I love the sun. I love the feeling of sun on my skin. It feels nice. It energizes me. So even though I don't go outside all the time, while I'm out, when I go to work, I'm a delivery guy. So I'm out in the sun. And
Yeah.
when I'm out and about, I love the feeling of sun on my skin. So it feels nice. It's refreshing, and it's definitely because of not only because of the fresh air, but also the sun rays, the vitamin D that comes from it. It's definitely beneficial.
Oh yeah. But that's all we're gonna do tonight, I think. Unless you got something else to pull on.
Nothing.
All
I do
right. Well,
appreciate that as always. Love to be.
oh yeah, man. You're stuck. Just told you that you're stuck.
We're stuck together like glue, and I love it.
Oh
It's
yeah. Thank you all for. I can't even talk right now. I was in a good mood. Thanks for joining us and join the raid. Hope y'all have a great night. Bye.